Greetings and salutations. Welcome back, episode 7.
Earn Your Leisure Podcast. We back.
Earn Your Leisure Podcast. Thank you for your support, your encouraging words. Thank you for riding with us throughout this journey of ours. So, Troy.
Yeah, man.
We gotta talk about some real issues.
A personal issue for me and for millions of Americans, about 45 million of us to be exact. Student loan debt. It is a $1 trillion problem in America. I think it is the second, not even I think, I know, it is the second highest gross of debt in America, only to mortgage debt. And, you know, we spoke about the wealth gap and how important having a mortgage is and having homes are. But something is going to be combating that now and in the future if something doesn't change, and that's student loan debt. So there are some negative effects that it has long-term and short-term, and we're going to talk about some ways that not we, in a sense, but the government is proposing to change that.
Yeah, so something came out recently, right? What happened? What happened?
So we had a report that the Senate is thinking of a way to have employers pay for student loan debt. So right now, they do reimburse people who are going to school. So they will reimburse you for tuition, and that is pretty standard in some fields of employing. But having the debt paid is something that will be very new. And what they're saying is that employers can match up to $5,000 in student loan debt for their employees. It'll be an incentive for people to take jobs, and it will help burden that debt that is pretty much crushing people. Like the average person has $36,000.
So what does that mean? What exactly is going to happen?
So employers, right? Like if I want to get a job, let's say I'm a teacher and I want to get a job at a school. And one of the things I ask the employer or the school district is, do you guys reimburse for student loan debt tuition? Right now, that isn't in place, but there are proposals that could do that. And if it passes, they can reimburse up to $5,000. So they're not going to pay your entire payment, because I think the average person, this study showed that the average person spends more on their student loan debt than they do on their monthly groceries, which is like crazy. Like people have to pay more in debt than they are eating, which is like ridiculous. But they'll pay a percentage of it. So even if let's say that your student loan payment is $700, right, which is kind of median in this day and age, the employer can say, we'll pay $200 of that. And they'll do that as long as you're with the company.
So will that be deducted from your salary?
No, it's not deducted. It's actually the employer gets a tax benefit.
The employer gets a tax benefit
Right.
for paying off your student loan.
Absolutely. It's just like when they do tuition reimbursement. Like people don't know that the employers write that off as a tax deduction.
Okay.
Yeah. So like that's a new proposal that could happen. We'll see. Because if we don't figure something out, right, people's lives are being delayed. So like when people come out of college, and it should be a celebratory time, right? We go to school 4 or 5 years, we get our bachelor's degree, and in most situations now we have to go further and get our master's degree. We should be celebrating that. But what people don't realize is that in 6 months, government's going to come knocking, right? We need you to start repaying. And the problem is that when people come out of school and they amass so much debt, like if they go to a top line school, it could be $200,000 that they owe after they finish, with their school. How are they going to repay that? Because you have to come out of school and then find a job that can support you and then also pay back. So what you see is that a lot of millennials are living at home longer. They're not having the money to save to buy a house. You see more people renting, and you see people's credits being damaged. That's one of the parts that a lot of people don't really understand, is that when you defer on those student loan payments, right, they put you into deferment for about 6 to 12 months at best. And then right after that, if you don't pay, it affects your credit. So now let's go further. Like if you don't have the credit score, now when you try to apply for an apartment, one of the things they check is your credit. Some jobs, when you apply, they check your credit. When you try to get a home, of course, they're going to check your credit. And a lot of people are being completely hampered by it because they can't afford to pay the debt. And now long term, they won't be able to come out from the effects of not being able to pay it. So it's like a domino effect of things that are happening because of this debt.
Okay. All right. So actually, I don't know if people remember, but if you follow my Instagram, I wrote a report about an interesting story in regards to student loan forgiveness a few months ago. So in December, the Department of Education announced it was going to cancel thousands of debts for teachers who had grants turned into loans, right? So, okay, here's the backstory on it. Teachers that were aspiring teachers were given grants to go to college, right? Then the thing was that you had to work in a low-income school district for 4 years after you were done with college, right? And then if you worked in a school district for 4 years after you were done with college, then you didn't have to pay the grant back. It was a grant, right? The problem is that it was all kinds of red tape involved, where you had to certify every single year with the Department of Education by sending in, I believe, like forms. And if you were like 1 day late on the form, then your grant turned into a loan. And then you had to get the letter, I think, signed by a principal, but it was during the summertime, so a lot of schools were closed and it was hard to find administrators. And then people moved and then their addresses wasn't updated properly, so that they never actually got the letter in the mail. So what ended up happening is that thousands of inner city teachers had their grants turned into high interest loans. Not only loans, but high interest loans. And overnight, they were crippled with tons of debt that they didn't know about. So they might have took a grant. They might have had a grant for $50,000, and they thought that it was all good. And they find out that now they're in $50,000 of debt. So a good friend of ours, a friend of the show, she'll be on the show soon, hopefully. Valencia Clay. So she's a superstar teacher out of Baltimore. Her name is Valencia_Valencia on Instagram. Everybody probably follows her. Everybody knows her. So she's the one that actually told me to write this story. Because it happened to her personally, right? Where it affected her, where I think she was trying to buy a home and she didn't know that her credit was affected, and they say your credit is real low, and she's like, what happened? And then she found out that her grant turned into a loan and she was behind on her loan payments. So that happened to thousands of inner city teachers. It's a very unfortunate situation.
Absolutely.
And now I guess it's something that they're trying to rectify by saying that they're forgiving a lot of loans because...
So there are a few loan forgiveness programs. Like I was a beneficiary of a teacher forgiveness loan program.
So you were an inner city teacher?
Yes, for 8 years. 8 years. You
taught in the Bronx?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. So part of the loan, and people have to like do their research, like, because there are a lot of programs that are being offered to have loan forgiveness depending on what career you're in. So for me, like you said, it was the teacher loan forgiveness, and some of the stipulations where you had to work in a inner city school, a Title I school, for 5 years, and based on what you were teaching, so if it was math or science, you could be granted a certain amount of money, or if it was social studies or English, it was a certain amount of money. But I argued like, hey, if I do science, right, well, what's the difference? We're all teaching, right? So the max you could get was $17,500. So I was granted that, which was great, and it helped a lot. But there's another loan forgiveness program, which is called the public service loan. And that goes for anybody who works in public service. So if you're a government agent, not a government agent, government official, you could qualify for this loan if you're part of a 501(c)(3) program, or if you're obviously a teacher, you still qualify. The problem is that there are a lot of stipulations and some red tape, like you said. So one of the things is you have to have 120 consecutive payments. You can't miss a payment. So that's like 10 years of payments you can't miss. And I thought I qualified for that. Like I had paid my loans on time. I applied for this program, the public service loan. It's either 10 years or 120 payments consecutive. And when I realized is that after I got no response from the government, it was like, this is weird. And then a report came out. They said that 1% of the 45,000 people who applied for the public loans service, public service forgiveness, were granted it.
Yes. 1% of applicants.
It's like 0.8.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. A government program where 1% of the applicants were accepted.
Yeah, because inside of the 120 consecutive payments is a thing, but what they don't tell you is like it has to be a specific type of payment plan. It has to be like an income-based one, or one that they set where the interest is really high and you have to pay like $700 a month. Or probably like my situation, I didn't leave college with a lot of debt.
It's all kind of nonsense involved.
It's ridiculous.
It's college. You know, the interesting thing about it is that Google, IBM, Facebook, I believe, a few other companies recently dropped the college requirement.
Right, they're just taking kids right out of high school
to be hired.
Right.
So, do we need college?
So it's tough, right? As an educator, like I'm going to say yes, that at some point you will need some form of college, or right, we can't leave them, or you have to learn a skill, right? And they've been taking that out of schools. Like they used to have schools where you learn trades and you learn skills, and you can carry on that into a profession, which is like kind of what you're saying what Google's doing. Is like, look, if we have kids who have an interest and they are advanced at,
if you know how to code, you don't need to. You don't need to go.
We're going to go straight, and we'll teach you on the job.
But you have to know how to code.
Right, and a lot of schools are offering that now at high school and at the elementary levels. So if they're not going to go to college, then yeah, there are some careers that they can do, and that's one of the things that we talk about in our summer program is, hey, everybody's not going to go, and the way that this is looking is from a cost perspective. This may not be the best option for you, so we have to tell them about careers that they can do without a college degree. So some of the things that they can do are law enforcement. They can be a firefighter.
I think you need a college degree to be a cop.
No, I think you just got to go to academy.
Years.
You got to go to academy.
Each state is different.
Yeah, so
New York State, I think you have to have 2-year degree or 2 years.
So with
something.
It's something, not a 4-year degree.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got firefighters, you have electricians, plumbers. There's plenty of
HVAC.
Right, there's plenty of careers that you can do without a college degree. Yes, you do need training, and yes, you do need licensing to do those careers. But you're not going to come out of those trainings with $100,000 to $200,000 in debt. I had a friend of mine the other day. His son just got accepted to Ohio State for aviation, full ride. And just for curiosity, I said, how much would that have cost you if he didn't get the full ride? You know the number?
How much?
$300,000 for a 4-year at Ohio State. $300,000. So imagine the kid who doesn't have the full ride. $300,000. And you're 21 years old, what job is going to pay you the type of money that you can reimburse the government with?
No job.
Right. So it's either you're going to pay the student loan or pay your rent at that point. And most times they just stay at home. People stay at home longer, like I said. So you got to choose. It's like, is this the best route? Or can we go to schools that are going to cost less? Or like what New York is doing, you can go to school for free depending on your family's income. And one of the stipulations is that you have to work in the state in that field. So if you wanted to be a teacher again in New York State, they have the Excelsior program. That's what it's called. It's free. State schools. The only thing I think.
But each state is different.
Like every state doesn't have like an Excelsior program, but New York State has adopted it, and that's great. Like if I would have had the Excelsior program, I walk out of school with nothing because I went to school in New York. I've worked only in New York for more than 4 years. My tuition would have been free. So hopefully some states start adopting policies like that. And if not, man, we're going to have a huge problem on our hands. Like I said,
we already have a huge problem.
Right. It's a $1.5 trillion problem now. That only grows because tuitions only grow.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Well, this is something that we need to talk about on the campaign trail. Elections coming up. And I would urge everybody, really, but especially young people and parents to make that something that you hold your elected officials accountable for, because financial aid and student loans and these things are very important, and it's a growing problem, and it's only getting worse because the cost of education is only going up.
Yeah, and the more you know, the better. Like I speak to parents and I speak to young teens all the time who have no idea about these things. Like when we have these sessions in the summer and the kids are like, "Wait, that's how much it costs?" Like, yeah, that's what you're walking into. So just be prepared to know that and make sure that you do everything possible, whether it's grants or whether it's scholarships, so that you don't fall into this type of situation, right? Because $36,000, that's the average. That's a lot, man.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, there you have it. Student loans in a nutshell. Okay, so we talked about student loans. Now we're going to talk about business, the world of business. And business is a contact sport. I always say it's very competitive, right? Mm-hmm. So we haven't really had a head-to-head competition case study yet. We did look at Rihanna and Kylie Jenner's companies, but we didn't really compare those two companies. But now we're going to do Battle of the Titans, right? Clash of two big companies, Uber and Lyft. So Uber and Lyft are both coming on the stock market soon. Mm-hmm. They are both what's called IPO. When you IPO, that's when you debut on the stock exchange. And they're probably the two biggest talk of the town when it comes to Wall Street this year, right? So Uber and Lyft, we're going to look at them. We're going to kind of compare them. And then I have an interesting story. We both have interesting stories about Uber that probably a lot of people aren't fully aware of. So you want to start this off?
Yeah, so let's just talk about the two differences, the differences between the two companies. So Uber, both are ride-sharing companies. Uber, the much larger one, they're in 58 countries, over 300 cities. Lyft, smaller, they're in the 46 states in the United States and in Canada. Uber, again, is larger, so it has more employees, about 20,000 compared to Lyft's 4,500. And the valuation is the big difference. So you got the valuation for Uber at 72 to 76 billion, and then you have Lyft at about 15 billion. Now, when their IPO goes on the market, they said that those numbers are most likely to inflate when we have people investing. So that's just on the service for those two. They differ again in their future innovations as well. So we have Uber, obviously, they try to compete with each other. So when one company does something, the other one does the same. So they start out with having cars, but both companies, Uber and Lyft, have dabbled into the bike and scooter service business. I believe Uber bought the company Jump, which is a bike and scooter service, for about $200 million, and Lyft bought Motivate, which is another bike and scooter service, for about $250 million. So you can see, like, when one makes a move, the other one is trying to keep up. But then it kind of gets a little difficult for Lyft because obviously they don't have the same amount of employees. So Uber has a huge deal in 2017. Actually in 2014 they launched Uber Eats, which is huge, right? It's a delivery service for food, but they get their biggest sponsor in 2017, which is McDonald's. So McDonald's, obviously, world-renowned, probably the largest franchise in the world.
I think so.
Yeah, probably, right? So they're the largest franchise in the world. Uber Eats signs up with them. So Lyft says, let's try to get our own sponsor, and they signed Taco Bell. Taco Bell. So I've never eaten Taco Bell. Have you?
I used to eat Taco Bell when I was in Hawaii. Yeah.
So they get Taco Bell, and they decide to have a campaign with it. So one of the things is, like, they call this thing Taco Mode. And I'm not sure if anybody's ever used it, but Taco Mode was only available in Lyft from the hours of 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., which is, like, I think that's when college students are hungriest, right? So, like, you call your Lyft and you push Taco Mode, and the Lyft takes you to the nearest Taco Bell. It is a complete failure. They tried it out. It was a complete failure. They dropped it, and they haven't got another sponsor as far as from the food. Another thing about their future is that they have some things that Uber doesn't, and Uber has dealt with a lot of scandal lately. So they've been in the news for having the self-driving cars that have failed.
They had a lawsuit.
For the car.
All right, so we'll talk about that. So the lawsuit. So Uber, Waymo. You ever heard of Waymo before?
No.
I'm pretty sure nobody has ever heard of Waymo. So we have to give you the backstory on this. Google, I'm pretty sure everybody has heard of Google, right? Google and Uber have a very complicated relationship. Google was kind of Uber's big brother. It was like a big brother, little brother relationship, right? In 2013, Google invests $258 million into Uber, which gives them about 6% of the company. And the CEOs really like each other. They kick it off. In 2014, the CEO of Google takes a ride with the CEO of Uber, and they're trying to figure out how to make self-driving cars, right? The relationship sours the next year when Uber finds out that Google is putting money into self-driving car technologies. by developing a company named Waymo. Waymo is Google's self-driving car technology company. They have a whole company devoted for self-driving cars.
Yeah, so it's like a pick your brain meeting.
Yeah. So Uber feels a way about this. So what Uber does is that they recruit Google's one of their top engineers at Waymo to come to work at Uber, right? And right after he comes, they purchase a self-driving car company, forget the name of it, but it makes them $500 million in revenue. Google sues Uber because they said that the engineer stole
Took the ideas with him.
12,000 files from Waymo to give to Uber.
All right.
So now they have a lawsuit where they're going back and forth between if it was inside information that was stolen and it's illegal to do that. Uber said that they didn't do that. So long story short, they settled the lawsuit, I believe, a few weeks ago. And they settled the lawsuit for 0.34% of the company. Uber settled it with Google, and they gave Waymo what we call 34 basis points. 34 basis points is 0.34. 34% of 1% of the company, of Uber. Doesn't really sound like a lot, but that's roughly equal to $244 million. So they settled it for $244 million, but they're still not admitting that they did anything wrong. So now you have Uber, who is at odds with somebody that once was a major investor, or still invested in them, and it's a race for self-driving cars, right? It's a whole different conversation, but the self-driving car
I don't know if I trust
thing,
it.
well, I'd rather trust a self-driving car than a regular driver, right? If you think about it, computers are probably more efficient than people. Like, look how many accidents there are on the road.
In certain aspects of life. I'm not sure
mostly
driving
everything.
I'm not sure driving a car.
Okay, if you had a computer like IBM Watson, do you think that you would trust them to do a calculation, or would you trust?
I would trust that.
The smartest person?
That I would. I would.
It's the same thing.
I trust myself more than the computer driving a car.
Well, the computers don't have distractions. They're not texting. They're not looking at what's going on the road. They're not rubbernecking. Some people say it's actually a lot more safer to have driverless cars.
I'm just, I couldn't do it. I just personally couldn't do it.
Well, it's happening.
Yeah, I know it's happening.
And it's a race. It's a race to
who can do it first.
Yes, it's a race to who can do it first. Elon Musk is involved with Tesla.
Yeah.
Uber is involved.
But they've also, Tesla itself has had, again, so not scandal, but they've had some controversy with some of their cars malfunctioning. Some of their self-driving cars.
Of course. But how many cars malfunction regularly?
Yeah, I mean, people getting accidents every day.
There's always going to be one car. It's not like it's never going to be 100% perfect, right?
People get in accidents every day.
Exactly.
Which is true.
Exactly.
And like you said, there's going to be less distractions. Obviously, there won't be, if they're self-driving, there's not going to be any alcohol-related accidents or, like you said, but I don't know. I just feel like the trust in myself over a computer, I'd have to learn how to do that.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because now Waymo is at a disadvantage because they're behind in the technology, because now Uber, people don't know that Uber invests so much money in they're already planning their next phase. There's one thing I do like about Uber. They are constantly reinventing themselves, right?
Yeah.
So they're a ride-sharing company now, but they know that space is crowded and there's a lot of competition, and then there's problems, political problems, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So now they're already trying to reinvent themselves. Uber Eats.
Yeah, they got the food delivery drones.
Delivery. Now they have drones.
Yeah, the food delivery drones. And then they're investing in flying. So they're thinking already down the line, we're going to have taxis that fly.
Flying taxis. Yes.
That's
flying
great.
taxis.
It's like the Jetsons.
No, yes, flying taxis, and this car. That's what I'm saying. It's so crazy because Waymo, nobody's heard of Waymo before. Google has $1 billion company that nobody's heard of that is currently working on ways to change the way that we travel.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy, man.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So a part of and you said it like politically, like things are changing too. And what's happening here in New York with Lyft and Uber is that they have changed the way that New York City travel looks, right? It used to be yellow cabs that flooded the city, and now it's Uber and Lyft. And the Taxi and Limousine Commission said, wait, they're taking away our business, right? We have 1/4 of the inventory that they have, right? People take their everyday cars and turn them into taxi services. So what they said was like, we're going to file a report and we're going to get to the bottom of this because we're losing drivers at an alarming rate. And what they found out was that the average Uber and Lyft drivers, they were making like $14 an hour, which in New York City is not the minimum wage.
The minimum wage is $15?
$15.
$15 an hour.
So when they found that out, they were like, Uber said, hey, we don't have to abide by the minimum wage because these aren't employees. We don't have employees. We have independent contractors.
1099 independent contractors.
Right. So when they have an independent contractor, they don't have to abide by workplace laws. They don't have to abide by minimum wage, and they don't have to buy overtime and safe and healthy laws. Like, you're an independent contractor. Right. So that changes the way that they look at the people who are working for them. So from that, New York City, obviously, they won the case. Mayor Bill de Blasio was part of that. Now the minimum wage, it has to be $15 for Uber and Lyft drivers. But on top of it, and to combat the overflux of these cars, like they're trying to charge like tolls now to go into lower Manhattan. They're saying, look, we're doing a pause. So for 12 months, to start, I think in the summer this year, in 2018, for 12 months, they're not allowed to have any new licensed vehicles patrolling the streets of New York City. So like in Manhattan, that might sound good, but if you live in the outer boroughs, like you might rely on those services, and you can't have any more right now.
Yes. Well, it's like I always say, you can't stop energy. I don't think that that's a fight that the city is going to win because Uber, they're groundbreaking.
They're not going anywhere.
It's groundbreaking. Yeah. It's a groundbreaking idea, and it's disruptive. It's disruptive. Absolutely. And it's changed everything. So I think that their biggest competition will come from other companies like Lyft and other new companies that spawn up, which is, I'm pretty sure they are aware of that, and which is why they are constantly reinventing themselves and adding new facets to their company. Yeah. Neither Lyft neither Lyft or Uber is profitable.
Not yet.
By the way.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see how, when they IPO. I think that, obviously Lyft is at a disadvantage. They're a smaller company. Yeah. They have less, like you said, drivers. They have less revenue. They have less everything.
They're not global yet.
They're newer. Yeah. But at one point, MySpace was bigger than Facebook.
True.
At one point, Blockbuster was bigger than Netflix.
Yeah, never discount the underdog. Man.
So you
never count them out.
Just because somebody's number one right now does not mean that they're going to be number one forever. So it'll, be entertaining to watch, to see how this unfolds, whether, they get brought by a company, whether they take each other over, whether they both succeed. Who knows? Yeah. But everybody...
It might be a third party that comes in. Who knows?
It might be a whole completely different new company that comes in. So, all right. Well, we will follow it. We will look to see what happens. And when it IPOs, we definitely will have a follow-up on both of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So, boys and girls, today's story, this episode's story, will be on Airbnb.
Airbnb, man. Amazing story.
Phenomenal story. Yeah. Phenomenal story. So I'll start it off. In 2007, right? Joe Gebbia.
Yeah.
And Brian Chesky. They were both 27 at the time.
Yeah.
Right? And they lived in San Francisco. If anybody's not familiar, San Francisco, I believe, is the most expensive place to live in America. Highest real estate. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure.
Outside of Manhattan Island.
No, I think it's more expensive
more than that?
Manhattan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is. So they were struggling to pay rent, right? 27-year-olds, fresh out of college, struggling. So they live together. They have like a 2-bedroom apartment, I assume. And it was a big conference coming up in the city, a design conference.
Yeah.
Right?
So they both come from the Rhode Island School of Design. So there was a design conference coming, and they were planning on attending.
Yeah. So all the hotels in the city were booked. Because if anybody's familiar with San Francisco is a very small city. That's why the real estate is so expensive in San Francisco, because it's very small. Obviously, you have Silicon Valley nearby in the tech industry. So it's a couple of different things that makes San Francisco so expensive. It's very small, and you're surrounded by the tech industry, which billionaires all around. So land is very scarce. So all the hotels in the city were booked, right? So they have the bright idea to rent out their living room for people that are looking for hotels. They know people are coming into the city and they're not going to have anywhere to stay.
Yeah, I think Joe sends an email to Brian like, hey, I have this idea, and he shows it at a lot of his press conferences. I have this idea.
Yeah.
You know what? There's no more hotels in the city. There's no more rooms. We got something.
So they want to put 3 air beds in their living room on the floor, and they are going to cook their guests breakfast.
Right. So we're going to rent the space. We have some space in the living room, 3 air mattresses. Not only we're going to let people rent that, but right, you said we're going to make breakfast for them.
So the next day they launched a website. The website is called airbedandbreakfast.com because they give you an air bed and breakfast because they're going to make you breakfast. Yeah. Airbedandbreakfast.com.
Keep it simple.
Hence the name Airbnb. But at first it was called airbedandbreakfast.com, right? So from there, a few weeks later, they actually get 3 people to come.
Yeah.
And I think they charge them $80 a night.
$80 a person.
$80 per person per night.
Yeah.
Right? And it worked out for them.
Yeah.
And then next year is when they really take off because now they have an idea, they have a business model, they have a website.
But before they get to the next year, like, they're broke.
Oh, they're broke.
They're broke. So, like, that conference came and it left.
Yeah, it's $80.
And they still couldn't pay the rent. So what they did is they took out as many credit cards as they could. And he tells a story where he remember he used to have trading cards and you slid them in. He had a trading card book, but it was just credit cards. And I think they accumulated like $15,000 in credit card debt each just to pay. They couldn't take out any more cash advances on their credit card.
Cash advances.
Yeah.
Powerful tool, very dangerous tool.
We have some stories on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a different story.
Yeah.
Okay. So next year, 2008, there's a senator that is the talk of politics. His name is Barack Obama, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's running for president the first time, obviously. And there's the Democratic National Convention, which is held in Denver, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So they gear up for the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah, they got another idea.
So they're saying, okay, this is a perfect, I think 80,000 people were going to come into Denver and there's not going to be enough hotels. Very similar to what they did in San Francisco. But now they want to scale it. Yeah. So they want to recruit other people to rent their apartments, rent their homes, and then they get a portion of that and they'll broker it for them. And
yeah, the idea was like, we're going to find Obama supporters in Denver to open up their homes for other Obama supporters.
I think it had 800 listings. They were able to find
they found some people.
800 homes.
And it was great. They made some money.
They made a little bit of money.
Yeah, some money. Yeah, not enough.
No, not enough.
Yeah, so they still, even after the convention, they're still broke.
No. Before the convention is over. Leading up to it, they have 800 homes and apartments that they were able to get people to rent, but they still didn't really make any money.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know why. I guess it just wasn't profitable for whatever reasons. So now they go to the convention and they have the bright idea as a marketing tool. And they didn't really do this to make money. They did this as a marketing tool to make cereal. Limited boxes of cereal. They have the Obama O's and the Captain McCain cereal.
Yeah, so it ties into what they do, right? We're going to give you the room, and how are we going to make breakfast now for you? Because the original thing was like, you get the room and we'll provide breakfast.
Yeah, but this was more of a PR stunt.
Yeah, no, but so he says it in some of his speeches. He's like, look, we had to figure out how we're going to scale breakfast. So are we going to put eggs and ship it to people? No, we're going to make cereal. So what they did, like I think Joe Gebbia does, is he goes to like the cheapest places he can find cereal. So he goes to like dollar stores and buys cereal, and they press up these pictures. Like they go to an architect, like, hey, we need you to draw this picture. So they have Obama and they have McCain on the cereal box, and they make it limited edition.
Limited edition.
Yeah, and each box has like the number. So if you bought one, you know that you have 4 out of 500. Because I think they only did 1,000 boxes.
I think it was 800.
No, 1,000 boxes. Each candidate got 500 boxes. So they put like 4 out of 200 or 5 out of 200. So everybody had a limited number on their box.
Okay.
The brilliant thing is that we know boxes of cereal cost like, what, $4 at the most? Sometimes a little bit more if it's supersized. They charge $40 for the box.
And they made $30,000. So they made $30,000 off cereal. And that was enough to propel them next year going forward, where they finally got the business off the ground and off and running. And then they were able to get a substantial amount of money from an angel investor.
Mm-hmm. Some seed money.
Mm-hmm. Then in 2011, they get even more money from Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah.
Legend. People don't...
He's made some brilliant moves.
People don't even remember him.
What was it, Punked? Was that the show?
Punked.
I think that's what it... Oh, no, the 70s show first.
The 70s show, Punked. He had this movie called The Butterfly Effect.
That was a decent movie. And then he married...
Demi Moore.
Right.
He was married to Demi Moore.
And now he's married to Mila Kunis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ashton Kutcher. Not to get off topic here, but the guy is a genius, right?
Makes some really good moves.
He's angel investor. He's a Hollywood A-list celebrity who, at the peak of his career, decides to switch his focus and become an investor in tech companies.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the companies that he invested in early, Spotify, Airbnb, Uber, Twitter.
And now Ripple.
Yes, cryptocurrency, Ripple. So Ashton Kutcher comes in 2011, gives them money, and then they skyrocket.
Right. It gives them money to hire more staffing. They go from the United States to now Europe offices, become global.
Their current valuation is $38 billion.
Wow. Yeah, I think so. They're both founders. There's three founders. They're each worth $4 billion.
Yes.
$4 billion. They're under 40 years old.
Yep. $38 billion valuation. The reason why I like this story is because it highlights if you are an entrepreneur, you have to do whatever you have to do. You have to hustle at all costs, mm-hmm. right? So they start with an idea to put air mattresses in their living room and to make people breakfast.
Yeah, nobody believed in them. Like they took this to Silicon Valley, had 20 investors.
No, it's laughable. If you think about it, right? You're putting 3 air mattresses in your living room and you're going to make people breakfast and you're going to name the company Air Bed and Breakfast?
Yeah. They said they laughed at that's not a joke. They laughed at them and they said this is never going to work. They had 20 investors. 10 of them didn't respond to their emails. 5 of them met with them. And the other 5 sat down and had a 10-minute conversation. All of them said no. None of them believed in it.
And then, nobody believed in it. And then when all else fails, they realize that they have to go to plan B and they sell cereal.
Yeah. And that's what gets them the money from the seed investors. They're like, if you can sell cereal to people at $40 a box, you must be on to something.
If one hustle isn't working, you got to switch it.
Right. He said that his mom would call him like, wait, I thought you guys were a chain of like hotel services. Like you're selling cereal now? You're a food company now? It's like whatever we have to do to get this money.
Whatever, by any means necessary.
Yeah. But it didn't, like I said, it didn't work at first. And they had to go to the drawing board. And one of the things they said, they met an investor and he was like, go meet your people. And what that really meant was like, why isn't it working? And they found out that when they went to some of the places that they were listing, they realized that the people weren't taking great pictures. It wasn't displaying the homes like they should. Mm-hmm. So they said they went to New York and they went to Manhattan and Brooklyn, and they went to each listing and said, look, here's a camera I want you to use when you take these pictures. And from that moment,
and it's important too, because when we say, all right, we give you guys these case studies. So when you go to like business school, Harvard, Yale, whatever, top business school, Wharton, they go through case studies, right? And it's entertaining stories, but it's more so it's education, right? we're not just giving you these case studies just to entertain you. Hopefully, you can learn something from it and implement it in your business, whether you sell T-shirts, whether you're a barber, whatever. You can learn from other people's success stories and figure out a way how you can copy what they have done, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
We spoke about that when we talked about
Duplicate what
franchise.
they have done or inspire you or gain some type of insight. So I just want to leave that because, we give a lot of these stories and they are entertaining, but it's not just a bedtime story. Like it's for actual action, like to take action, to leave some inspiration. So hopefully that story to me at very least is a very inspirational story for a few different reasons. But I just feel that stories like that really, give you the push to keep going because it's not going to be easy in any type of business that you do.
2007, nobody believes in them. 2016, they become the official sponsor of the Summer Olympics. Like this brand that nobody believed in. So like that's to tell you, like just be persistent. Believe in yourself.
From broke to 30,000 in cereals to 38 billion valuation in 10 years.
Right. And anybody can do that.
Yes.
Yeah, anybody can be a host. So it's like if you have space, like
it's like Uber's story.
Anybody
like
can do
it's a disruptive idea. They disrupted the hotel industry, which was the same for 100 years. So if you want to find the next big thing, see what hasn't been changed in the last 100 years and find a way to disrupt that.
And look across. Look across. Like the people around you might be able to help you.
Yep.
Right?
That's
like
another good lesson.
He reached out to his friend who was from the same design school. He reached out to another friend that was a web developer. That's how they got the site up. And then the person who gives them the seed money actually came from the Rhode Island School of Design. He was like, wait, let me at least have a meeting with these guys since they came from our school. And that's how it starts, man. Reach across, man.
Reach across. Okay. Well, before we leave, we have some exciting news.
Yeah. So we are, again, on YouTube, which we announced on the last episode. But now we have our merch up on earnyourleisure.com. So we have some cool ideas that are up there. So, feel free to support. We also have our Patreon app, which is going to be providing some exclusive and behind the scenes content and also some other features that we thought that would help people by request. Pretty much people have been asking some things and we felt like Patreon would be a good avenue to address some of those topics.
Patreon is something that we're definitely excited about, something that we've been working on. So, we give a lot of free game for a long time. My Instagram page, 2 years, right? we do the podcast. So a lot of times people have even more questions or they want personal mentorship or business coaching or pick my brain or just even stuff with the podcast. We talk probably about an hour after the podcast is over. We just go into in-depth stuff. So you guys will be able to see it when you go on there. But that's all the extra bonus features and all of that stuff will be laid out in our Patreon. All of the links will be on our website. And YouTube. The merch is dope too. I'm not just saying that because I'm involved with it. It's actually very creative. And you know what? It gives a good message for financial literacy and it gives good, inspirational quotes and things of that nature. Yeah. So I think that
especially in our culture, like that's one of the things we notice is that people will look at what you're wearing first. So if they're going to look, we might as well have a message.
And say something. Yeah. Exactly. So, that's what we're doing. We're just pushing positivity. Thank you guys for supporting us. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also turn on our notifications. Also for Instagram as well. Also for iTunes. Yeah. Subscribe. I know you guys are listening to iTunes. Subscribe. But we're not just on iTunes. That's another thing too, people. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on Podbean. We're on Anchor. We're on a bunch everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you list it all the time.
So, all right, guys. We will see you next week. Peace.